How do I balance short-term and long-term goals, such as a down payment for a house, my first house, versus saving for retirement? Um, that's pretty good question because when you save money now, it's so much more effective later on because you have so much more time to compound it. And so saving for a down payment is you're giving up something. It's a trade-off. And so if you're living in the Bay Area, for example, in San Jose, the median house price is $1 million.
Wow.
You're putting down 20% for that. That's 200,000.
Yep.
And then if someone's saving on a medium household income, which is about 120,000, and
Yep.
you're saving 20% of that, it's going to take you 8 years just to have a down payment for a house. And that's kind of crazy. And so if if you want to live in the Bay Area, you gotta change up your plan. You might not be able to save that aggressively without giving up something else.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, actually. It's really interesting because think about that. You got 20%. That's a lot. Not many people are doing that, but if you're really motivated to getting a house, and that still takes you 8 years on a pure savings basis to get, enough money to buy this home. And then what are you going to do for your retirement plans? How much are you going to put in your 401k? How much are you going to be able to, put into an IRA or a Roth or any of those things when you're already saving 20% towards this home. And so I do think if you have a 401k, somehow, some way, you got to, and it has a match, you got to put in enough to try to get the match. So if it's 3%, right, and they're going to match that, that's 100% rate of return. If you put in $100 and they give you $100 more to put in there, and now you have $200 going in, wow, you just can't pass that up. And you're right. I mean, I've seen some amazing studies with people that start savings for retirement, just 10-year periods, like 20 to 30 or 30 to 40 or 40 to 50. And the 20 to 30, that earlier period of saving same dollar amounts, it's unbelievable how much more money they have at age 65 than somebody who even started just 10 years later for 30 to 40. Um, but the Bay Area is a really extreme situation because of house prices. And so, if you really want to stay here, and I personally feel like staying here has some significant financial benefits. I have a lot of clients that have done really well. It was hard to stay here, they had to do a lot of things to make it work. Um, but they also created a lot of wealth. And then in retirement, they could then move if they so desired. And, we do have clients in 26 states outside of California because of that. So I do think there's some advantages to trying to do that. Um, but you're right. I would say that, other than the match, you probably have to go for it and put as much as possible towards the home. Although I would be looking for any other situation that was available to me that might shortcut that and make it a little bit faster. So, a lot of the times when I see people buying houses, they had a company that they're working at and they could buy the company stock. And so that was something they were putting part of that 20% towards, and it worked and it went up and they had some money that way. Or they worked at a company that got stock options, or their parents were able to either give or lend them money. There kind of needs to be something that happens that, isn't in the norm, where you're just plunking away a few dollars a month, hoping to catch up to the price of homes. I mean, I'll give you my story. I was very, very interested in trying to buy a home, wanted to have a family. My wife and I are, saving some money. She had some money that she had saved prior. And so we kind of just went for it. I used to get in my car, put my bicycle on the back, and I'd go park. I wanted to live in Willow Glen. My grandparents built a house in Willow Glen in 1936, and I was really interested in living there. And so I would drive up and down this 10 block by 10 block area that I consider Willow Glen, and I ran across a house that was for sale by owner. Actually, the woman was putting the sign in the lawn at the time when I drove by. And so I stopped and talked to her. And this house was a disaster. It had been built in 1924, and that's what I was looking for, was a disaster. So, because I wanted to do something like my grandparents, I wanted to kind of build a home, and I couldn't afford much, so buying a disaster was kind of what was available to me at the time. And the house had actually jumped partially off of its foundation in the '89 earthquake, and they just kept living in there. She takes me through. I'm looking at it. I mean, you put a marble on the floor, it would roll all the way across the room. And so we were in a bidding war for that home, and we ended up, getting it. And then, we actually, built a new home on that and didn't have to put down anything more because the new home and the construction of that new home basically was worth more than the existing home. And that equity credit that we kind of built up by building this new home was the rest of our down payment. And my sister got a job offer between HP and Cisco. At the time, Cisco was 250 people, and she wanted me to do some research. And so I did some research. And man, I really like Cisco, so I bought some. And that was a big piece of what we used to buy the house with and such too. So I think if I'm looking at trying to buy a house, I'm going to get more aggressive. I'm going to probably try to find a Cisco if I can. I'm going to save money, left and right. I'm still going to try to get my match if I got a 401k. I'm going to look for special situations. Maybe I'm going to go into a condo and then work my way up, whatever it might be that, I think it takes something standard. I didn't have parents with money. If I did, I would have gone there. Honestly, I don't have any problems with that. But that wasn't an option for me, so look for every resource because it's so hard to get in as far as that goes. But it's a challenge, but I think it can be done. It's worth, getting through that challenge could really be an amazing thing for you. My business is bigger than it ever would have been if I wouldn't have bought a house and if I wouldn't have lived in this area. So those types of things that I think have paid off for the long term.
Yeah, there's some crazy stories of people taking big risks on their houses in the Bay Area, and
Yep.
but there's some safer options. Like you could go out to the East Bay where it's cheaper than San Jose. You might have a longer commute, or you go south to like
Yep.
Gilroy, Watsonville, Morgan Hill, or you take something smaller. Um, I know my friends that are trying to stay in the Bay Area. They've all started with condos. They've
Yep.
foregone the two bedrooms,
Yep.
the houses because they just can't compete.
Yep.
And it's kind of crazy how the market is right now. Like, for example, there's a house that one of my friends wanted to buy. There's 14 offers on it,
Yeah.
and they couldn't compete.
Yeah.
It's so. Do you ever think it's like take the risk of withdrawing from a retirement account to get into like having that down payment to compete with these bigger offers?
Yeah, I'm not completely object to that. I do think, in this particular area, the real estate market's pretty unique. Part of your retirement could be your home. The clients that live in these 26 states outside of California have cashed out the money that they made in their home. And so that could be somewhat of a retirement scenario. The problem with doing a straight withdrawal is just, when you're under 59 and a half, you can get penalties. There are some capabilities. I don't know what those are anymore. I used to, but where you could take some withdrawals for housing without that penalty, but you're going to lose this asset. I did take money out of my IRA and then put it back within 60 days, which is free. There's no penalty. There's no tax. You do have that capability of pulling money out for a 60-day period. I did that, in the construction of my home, actually, in that process. So um, yeah, I don't have a real problem with some of those aggressive things. It would be really interesting to see how it plays out on the spreadsheet and take a look at it, in a financial plan. But you're right, the condo and the out of area. My stepbrother bought a condo down in Morgan Hill. They've made a bunch of money on it, slowly but surely. They've been fixing it up themselves, and they're looking to try to move up and buy a different place, at some point here also. So yeah, you just have to consider every option, and there's a lot of them, and it's very competitive. And at some point in time, you have to be able to say, am I really capable of competing in this market right now? And if the answer is no, then just wait. I mean, eventually things tend to cycle around, and you might have a better opportunity at some other time. Matter of fact, in the case of my stepbrother, he bought that, at a time when things were down, and they actually had an assistance program in Morgan Hill, where he was able to qualify for a really low interest rate loan and what have you too. So, there's different things that happens when things do slow down. So, otherwise, figure out how to get more competitive. you're basically in the major leagues. You're in one of the best housing markets, that I can think of. And, you're trying to compete. And so how do you compete? How do you get more competitive? You get more money, you do some more things with your investments. Like you say, maybe you move down to a different area where you can compete. And deal with the commute for a while, with the idea being that, hey, I'm going to eventually not have this commute because I'm going to build up this equity in this condo in Morgan Hill or wherever, and I'm going to then use that equity to move up, and I'm just going to keep going. And that's a very standard practice. I've seen a lot of clients do very well with that over the years.
Yeah, I looked it up. You can take out $10,000 per person or your IRA
Oh,
penalty free for your first house.
awesome. Okay, good.
And then I think for 401k or loans, you can take half of the value
Wow.
or whichever is small or bigger or $50,000 or whichever is smaller, fifty
Whichever
thousand
smaller, yeah.
dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, I think you have to kind of tap all your resources. I wouldn't have a problem doing a loan like that. Again, this is my house. I mean, you're looking at this is my living room, so and it's been awesome to have. I've made a lot of money on the home, over the years I've had it. I've had lots of headaches with the maintenance and things there. It's not, the dream is sometimes, reality isn't quite the same. I've had a flood from a burst pipe, so stuff happens. But yeah, I think it's worthwhile. It's really an amazing goal to reach, to be able to kind of get that property, and so just keep working at it and look at every single avenue that you possibly can, and that's kind of how it works.